if you are on your intuition and on your vocation, you don't have to justify anything to anyone because you're not doing it to perform, to nurture your ego, to be quote unquote successful. You just love what you do.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Florian Kemmerich, who shares how to find purpose in the work that you do. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Most of my listeners are great at making money. Maybe you're making 6 figures, 7 figures, you got the title, the respect, the bank account, and yet you're absolutely miserable or just not great. Today, we're talking to someone who walked away from the corner office running a major healthcare corporation to figure out why success feels like a prison. Florian Kemmerich has mobilized nearly $1 billion in impact capital and written the book on what he calls vocating. But the real superpower? He figured out the difference between a job that pays you and a life that fulfills you. Isn't that what you want? Isn't that what you're looking for? Rather than running on the hamster wheel? We're going to cover that today and how you can make it yours. Welcome to Richer Soul, Florian Kemmerich. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you to have me with your community. I'm looking forward to hopefully, meaningful conversation.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I would say at the age of 18, I had the dream to become a stand-up comedian. And my father talked me out of it, saying, son, there are a lot of great artists out there not making a living. You want to make sure that you get a good education. Yeah. And then you get a real job. Yeah. And so I followed his advice to study the normal. And as a good Gen Xer, I got my entry-level job in a healthcare corporation. And for 15 years, I worked my way up. And then I wasn't even asking myself. I had the success my parents wanted. Then at the age of 33, I was running a company, having a job and a family. And then within the corporation, my boss said, Florian, you want to fine-tune something? Maybe here is a coaching for you. You want them? I said, yeah, company will pay. Absolutely, let's do coaching. And I did not know what I was walking into in front of it. You're a psychiatrist doing a psychotherapy and confronting myself with my inner child, not just the outer adult. And that was all weird. And I was going through the session saying, what is this? What is she up to? And there was a moment where I was sitting at 2 chairs and I had to sit on one side and talk. So the adult Florian was talking to the child Florian. Then I had to flip the side and the child Florian had to talk to the adult Florian. And the answer was just, for me, weird, because we're saying, what you do makes no sense. is not fulfilling. Yeah. And I don't think you're up to what you should do. I'm telling myself inside, and I said, hold a second. Yeah. And the coach was telling me there was a hard nut to crack because I had this smart ass shield. You don't ask questions, you do your job, up to, you're successful, you have responsibilities, you can adjust, do anything around it. And that was the pivot when then I said, who am I? Why am I doing this? And this is when I found out, I actually figured out that I have been this absent subject of my own education. My education gave me all the tools to make a living, but not to live my life. And so basically very early on, my parents were telling me, you don't do these vocational things, the purpose, this is, you earn money and then you do good. And that is the question you're asking me. Yes, I got, not only through my parents, but through society, the surroundings, I got taught, not to ask questions, to have a discipline, do a good job, and be successful. And success meaning fame, fortune, and power to a certain extent. When you lead an organization, you have some power. And all of that don't give me anything because they're only nurturing my ego. Yeah, it's not catering to my inner child to contribute, to do something which is greater than you. And as long as the ego is fed, it's good. But when it's over the cliff, you see this with sports people, they win gold medals at Olympics and then after that fall off the cliff. Or artists go into drugs and other things, Or you see the midlife crisis of someone, us in the 50s, either going crazy in the midlife crisis, have to live a life in extreme and like a youngster, which is the desperate sounds of the inner child, or then actually ask yourself, okay, life is going on. What's my purpose? I'm not doing what I really want to do. And that is the good question to ask at the end of your life. Other than having had a bank account and a family, what's your contribution? What has made your life worth living?
So let's take a step back. We'll get to that. What was little Florian like? What was childhood like before that 18-year-old got told he can't be the comedian?
Yes. So I grew up as a very sensitive child. Yeah. I wasn't into tough and rough, but at the age of 5, 6 years old, really primary school, my parents moved on the central part of Germany to the Swiss border in the Black Forest, and they all speak a dialect. I was kind of a foreigner within the same country, and my father was a doctor and my mother a teacher. So I was a little bit from the snobby side for them in the village. And the boys were basically beating me up sometimes. Really rough. And so I didn't complain, but I was suffering. And that's when my parent put me in judo so that I could toughen up and get stronger, know how to. And then I did 15 years judo up to the national team, Bundesliga in Germany, and an international level. I went to a sporting school to finish high school, doing judo in the afternoon, school in the morning. I was then supposed to be prepared for Barcelona 92 for the Olympics. But then I said, no, I'm not doing this because it doesn't, that was a challenge and you're into something. But actually when I did my military service, I moved out 3 months and then I was supposed to continue the military service on the sports side to prepare myself for Barcelona. And I said, no, because I didn't see myself in the future. I don't have the vocation of a teacher in judo. I had an amazing teacher in judo in my village, which brought me to where I went at the end, the levels. And you have someone in the vocation side, but I wasn't. So I said, okay, this is for me. There's not a living I can do. By the way, money-wise, doesn't look good at all. So that's when I had the idea at the time, I loved comedy. I was into the carnival in Germany, which is big with thousands of people. I was at a band. We were playing music, and that's why I thought, that's much better because for me, it's kind of numbing out the pain. But this is actually the story And that's why, by today, if I want to entertain myself to think about something else, I watch comedians on social media because I just enjoy it, and it makes me, the ordinary life sometimes and the pains, they're just moved on.
That's an interesting backstory. And it's funny because I think we see that a lot with kids in sports. In the US, parents don't realize it. They push their kids so much into sports, and sometime around 13, 14, 15, 16, they go, I'm out. This isn't fun anymore. It went from, even if they enjoyed the sport, it went from enjoyment to not enjoyable anymore. It became work or a job that took away all the fun. And then the kids walk away, and then the parents are mad, and these wonderful things kind of happen.
Rocky, this is exactly so. It was a moment when the national trainer said, Florian, I want to prepare you for the Olympics, but that's the thing you have to do. Those here. And suddenly I said, okay, this is now no longer me just having fun and doing what I do. Yeah, this is actually getting a job. And I see, but that's not a real job. I cannot make a living. Yeah. And then it's no longer me and somebody else telling me. That's when I moved on. And I had the advantage, which a lot of sports people don't, because you're in the, all your friends do the same sport. You go every weekend to another, tournament, and competition. And that basically, I had the advantage with the military. 3 months out, I could think about something else. I was at the parachutist, and I stayed at the parachutist. I did not go back to the judo. I just left there. Yeah. And I did my American wings also, the NATO maneuver. But the point was really that was exactly the reflection where I said, this is not me. Yeah, this is now getting something I don't want to go.
Congratulations for making that choice. Was there a reason your boss sent you to the therapist?
Yes. Yes. So for me, I have high energy. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas. Yeah, at a certain moment, he thought this was for you just to fine tune on the communication side something, to slow down, to go more paced. And so basically that's the way he said, this is a coaching which will help you provide some tools. But then, of course, it was totally different. But the effect was yes, because if I cater to my inner child, I slow down. I listen to me. And that helps me also my communication today.
So let's go back to that. You're sitting there, you're having the conversation with the younger you. What happened?
To my surprise, because initially I thought, how weird. Okay, 2 chairs. And she says, okay, now you sit here and you are the young Florian and you talk to the adult Florian. What you as a young Florian, looking at the adult Florian, how do you see him? And I just naturally, basically thought I went back to my childhood, the 10-year-old, with the dreams and the fun, and life was joyful. Yeah, and I saw this business smartass, very eloquent, all good, all things, but distance, not really on the feeling side, always on the head side. And I said, I had the feeling as a child saying, that's not what I want to be. That triggered then that I actually asked myself, why is there a child I don't even know about? Why have it suppressed the child in me rather than cater to it? Who am I? Yeah. And then when I basically recognized that I have been the absent subject of my own education, I learn about everything else but me. I don't learn about how I function emotionally, how I function instinctively, how I function mentally. I do not know. And that was the moment when I decided, okay, now I want to know. So I left the golden handcuffs in the corporation. Nothing bad about the corporation. Great company, great colleagues, and the healthcare. It's all good. But I said, I'm doing something which is not me. I will go into the burnout. Yeah. And then the second thing is I started to dig into personal development methodologies just to know more about who am I. And I did a series of different things on my quest to understand myself better. which eventually I did, to then say, okay, what are things I really care about? How can I contribute to the world professionally? Yeah, rather than just making money, hoping to have some free time to travel. Yeah, and the European dream always is, yeah, you want to have quickly short working hours and a lot of vacation. Yeah, which is in the US very different. Yeah, but again, why would you be in a job just to make money? Always inspired to leave and get your time free, to do the things you really enjoy. And that was for me something which I then learned, that I can actually match what my inner child wants, and the adult actually helps to cater to it, to build it. Yeah, so that I can live on both. I can actually cater both sides.
How long did that process take?
For me, several years, because I just did not know where to go, what to do. Yeah, and there was no AI, ChatGPT. I play question, I don't know. How can I know something? And so it was a learning process, saying, I'm stuck here. I don't want to be there. I need to do something else. Okay. So I went to a late stage startup, roller coaster, big burn rate. Yeah. The a US firm investing internationally. And I joined them just to get out of the big corporate job. Maybe that's a change, and I try something new. And then I studied the Jung colors, neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. I studied MBTI, Myers-Briggs. And again, not just doing it, a test and something, but actually for understanding and reading more about it, did some courses. Then I went into the Enneagram, really in detail, and actually used Enneagram within a company setup with my C-suite, people, my senior managed people, to apply that in an organization, not just me as individually. And you saw empathy going up, egos dropping. You understood that the power of heterogeneous groups, homogeneous groups are not good, heterogeneous. Yeah. And then also suddenly you focus on stakeholder value rather than shareholder value. And suddenly if you add purpose to it, your net promoter score goes through the roof, for everyone involved. So those are the things where I just played around. I just tested. I did not know, because nobody could tell me that. And also I did some human design, which is more structure and much more parameters, and it goes into even astrological field and something. Again, I did not do this for any spiritual purposes. I did it because I went into meditation, into contemplation, into certain sports and these things to cut out the noise, to actually be able to listen to myself, which is the biggest problem and hurdle we have. We are told your little child is not one you want to have. You want to become adult and do the right things. And you would only take external references. You're not taught and educated to listen inside. Yeah. So this is all over the years, a journey I had to end up what I do today, which is impact investing, to use capital as a force for good. But again, it was more my quest of trying this, testing this, my so-called roller coaster life, because it wasn't straight. It wasn't all successful, but I just tried to figure this out.
And you said that by bringing this to your leadership team, your company actually thrived and started to do a much better job of serving its clients.
That is correct.
What was it that shifted in everybody else? Because they weren't doing all this work, were they? Like you were.
I nudged them, and we changed the type of communication. I invited them to do a course. Yeah, we did the first an NLP course, which is more the communication side, whether you're kinesthetic, visual, or auditive. It helps you also when you get a message out, and make sure that you land actually what you want to say on the other person. So that's just intercommunication tool. Yeah, when you go into the Enneagram, you first have to find out about who you are. Yeah. And I myself, for example, I was fooling myself. I didn't want to be the type I am on the Enneagram. So no way, that's not me. I'm this one, So I had a hard time to be honest to myself, saying, okay, I might not like it too much, but that's me. Because then you go inside. But again, once I had done this and then applied it in the company level, and we went through even the different levels, and then I hired a school, and they were doing this, with a coach and doing that. But the effect was amazing. So initially, people were more afraid and saying, "Okay, our boss has a little bit spooky thing. He wants us to do some spiritual stuff." It is not spiritual. It is purely learning about yourself. And but then once in there, the whole communication changes. Suddenly, people would understand each other. Yeah, not argue as who's right and who's wrong. It's really, really a transformative process in an organization when you use personal methodologies, which wasn't at the time then including purpose, because purpose is the next step. First, I learn about myself. I cater to my inner child. And then what bubbles up, I see what those things could be. And then I use my adult, which is a skill set I have. I might be good in finance. I might be good in marketing, or I might be an amazing caretaker. Yeah, those are the things where it's another level on top. But again, this is all helping a company to thrive from a competitive nudge.
How long did that process take to flow through the company?
A year and a half.
So it was relatively quick.
Yeah, because you hire these, you say this. Let's do NLP. That goes quickly. That's some courses people understand. And there's some exercises to it in your journal, and then you go into Enneagram, and that is a tool which is interesting because I learned so much about myself through such a tool. And again, this is sometimes used also in companies and corporations, but not in a consistent way and not looking at it from a competitive edge. Because at the end, I learned from the sports. The winning part is 5% psychological. It's not your physical. It's not the tactical. It's the mental strength. When you suddenly have a tennis player who plays very well and suddenly has a bad day, or she has a bad day. It's these, because that's the 5%. Yeah. So if you're attuned, if your intrinsic motivation of the team goes up, if the coherence goes, if the enemy is outside, not inside, all of that helps to the company to thrive and to perform much better.
It's interesting. And I probably have to go back and spend a little bit more time on my Enneagram because it's been a few years since I reviewed it. I know my other ones pretty well, and I know how I fit in, and I see how I can fit into them very, very naturally. But it's been years since I know what my Enneagram is, but it's been years since I've done it. I also know, because I've worked with and been with people who are like Enneagram, I think it's 7s. And I know that they're going to burn the mountain on the way up. And when you know that, you can deal with it differently because that's just the way they are. And it's funny because on our sales page, I actually have all of my stuff listed, and I use it to explain how I help my clients and what they're going to get. Because the reality is, and I learned this early in business, when you pick your business partners, they should not be the same as you. As a matter of fact, the more opposite they are, the better. Because when you come together and agree, that's where the gold happens, is that type of conjunction. If you're all saying the same thing and agreeing, you're going to get blindsided left and right. You're not going to be able to do that. But it takes a little bit of letting go of ego to work with people and to understand them and to be able to do that. And then to also shift how you communicate with them. Because it also helps you understand, oh, he's saying that because he behaves like this. It's nothing personal. It's just, that's his operating system. And you got to go look at it. And so we actually have multiple operating systems. You've got the one that your 10-year-old kid had. And then we've got these other operating systems that you look at them all together. And I think you get a pretty good global picture. And then from that, you can make the appropriate choices. So now we're here. We understand what our kid wanted. We understand how our other operating systems work. Now we can figure out purpose.
Okay. So you do not necessarily have to understand others.
No, I
for
mean
you
ourselves.
to figure out your purpose. But absolutely, if you understand how you tick, Rocky, the big difficulty I had, and many people have, is if you talk about a purpose, people say, oh yeah, go when you're a child. Oh yeah, it's my child talking. Because I have this dream that I will one day will be this and this and that. And then hold a second, this is not talking your child. The child is living today and thinking about others. The child is not ego driven to be famous and fortune in the future. So you need to be very careful whether you base a decision or a purpose on your intuition, which is your inner child, or your fantasy or your imagination, of what you want to be. So let's say I'm a hobby musician. I love to play music. I walk into a hotel and there's a group playing, and I said, sorry, can I sing a song? Yeah, I'll play with you. And I do this one song. There might be no one standing there, it would be empty lobby. And it's just the moment I connect, it's beautiful, and then I move on, and it made my day. Yeah, if I say I want to be a rock star, most likely, if I would be there, it caters to my ego. So yet we all have ego, and ego is that we all want to make a difference in the world, and ego protects us because we are fragile. But this is this balance to say, okay, a purpose is not because I want to help, because I'm in a privileged position to someone else looking down. A purpose is I want to serve. I put myself to the service of. I'm not in a superior position because helping is ego driven. Yeah, and those are the things. And I had my own story also, Rocky, because when I was in Mexico running the company there, a subsidiary of the healthcare group, I created a non-for-profit continuous medication foundation, and we were servicing, patient associations and also vulnerable people out there in the jungle or the marginated areas. And this was more CSR approach, originally. And so we were supporting, for example, a extramural surgery program. So it's it's an OR on a truck. And the truck goes into rural areas, into the jungle to operate indigenous people on. And we were always donating the materials, the instruments, the IV solution, these things. And you do this because you feel good, you're giving back. I'm privileged, so I send the elevator back. Yeah, that's the thought, and I feel so good. So the doctor says, why don't you join? So I joined, went there, sleeping in a tent. I'm not a doctor, scrub nurse helping. And I felt amazing, to help these people there, which don't have access to healthcare on the site. And then I took a picture of a small child with a cliff lip, draped up picture. We did it on the news. We put it on the newsletter of the foundation. I felt so good. And then 6 months later, the truck goes in again and asked the doctor, can you please check and do a smile and photo of the same child, And I learned the child had died. Why? Because it's an infection. There is no nurse. There's no pharmacy. There's no doctor. You die. And it hit me so hard. How can I, privileged prick, thinking that I'm helping because I come privileged, I show up, I do good, and I leave, if I actually didn't invest myself, I'm not there to serve. And that struck me. And that gave me another lesson also throughout my learnings afterwards, because at the same time when I was struggling and then getting out of the big corporate, that you need to make sure it is for them, not for you. There's something also for you, but the primary driver should not be fame, fortune, or power.
There's a book, I think it's called When Helping Hurts. And it's more based on the people from the US going to Africa and helping. And it's because we go there and we want them to be helped the way we want to help them. Instead of actually providing what they need, we're providing systems that work for us, but not necessarily for them. And we waste a crap ton of money by doing that. We can actually get 10x, 100x, 1000x returns if we actually have conversations and see what the true need is and help them solve it within their own systems and take ownership of it.
100%. So I was about a decade long, we were running an asset manager in impact investing. We invested over 100 companies in over 30 countries, emerging market, rural area only, Africa, Asia, Latin America. We sometimes had difficulties to invest there because we have had, they know that the governments or the foundations providing things for free, to do what they say poverty uplift. But nobody wants to be uplifted. From a dignity standpoint, don't help me. Let me help myself, give me a chance. And so we were coming in from an investment perspective, where it's all about economic empowerment. So it's a little bit the sentence I say, you can give a person a fish, you can teach a person how to fish, or you can invest in their fishing business. And this is when you again, yes, you're sometimes areas where life is so difficult in some fragile setting that first you have give fish just for people to survive. And then you want to go capabilities so that people can actually fish themselves. But then you need to actually double down and invest in this. And this is, Rocky, very much exactly what you're saying. This is my experience, that capital as a force for good is when you impact lives and share profits, which is my leitmotif.
This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. Congratulations on seeing that. Too often the ego gets in the way. I'm going to take a step back to the child, because what I have seen, and it's more so, I think, at the teenage years, people want to do something. I want to be a doctor. I want to take care of horses, whatever it is, but they've never actually done it. And they don't even know what it means to do it. And by the time they figure out what it means to do it, they're like, had I known this, I would have never done it. And depending on the place they go, for example, by the time you get out of medical school and you're in your residency, it's a little late to go, I don't want to be a doctor. And for certain things are easier to change, but they don't take the time to go say, what does it really mean to be X? Even going back to your thing, what does it mean to be an Olympic athlete? What do I have to give up? And what do I have to do to actually succeed at this? We all just think they show up and they win or something. We don't realize the work that goes behind it.
Great examples. It goes back to why you decide to do what. Very often they say, oh, young people, they don't know, they have these dreams, they don't know what the real life is. Real life is harder, so let's not get that path. Get your skill and do good college, and then you find a job. But again, if my decision to study medicine and become a doctor is because fame and fortune are attached to them. Now you're a doctor, you're well seen, you might earn a good amount of money. But if you don't have a vocation, this is a damn hard job. Let's go. Teacher. Teacher, very often you're a teacher because you did not succeed in anything. And at the end, you just to get a job, you're a teacher and you're hanging in there. Very bad decision. You have a lot of burnout rates of teachers at the time, later on, 5-10 years later, unless you have a real vocation to teach. So those are the things where we should ask ourselves first, what are the things I really care about? You might have 2 or 3 things. Then the adult kicks in and said, okay, in order to do that, what does it mean? Let me give you an example of my eldest daughter. She's 28. She's married. She lives in Canada. And for her she was looking what she's really, and she's very intuitive, and she wanted to go into the caregiving. So she said, okay, from a education point of view, said, okay, I will study psychology. Makes good sense. She went into Reiki very early on. This is many years. Then also dance therapy. And then she tested, okay, professionally, caregiving, what are the possibilities? So she went into Montessori schoolish things with the children and did not like it. Okay. Then she went into elderly care, loved it. Tough job, elderly care. But she just loved it. But she had always the idea around the birth as a mother, and she's not yet a mother. So she decided to become a doula. Yeah. And she does this now independent, the Instagram up. She's getting trained. She has a mentor. She has just going through now, as we speak, the first birth. She's attending and supporting these moms. And you know what her comment to me was? Daddy, I cannot believe that I am paid to do this.
I say the same thing about my work. I can't believe people pay me to do that. I get paid to have fun. And I get paid well to have fun. I enjoy it. So, yes.
But that's the point. Because if you are in your zone, and if what you do is greater than actually you, and it's not catering to your ego, yes, you want to make a difference. You want to have success. Yes, you want to make a living and an earning because it's a job. It's not just some philanthropy hanging around there, And again, there's philanthropy, which is really great. And you have people dedicated to professional philanthropy. There's nothing against about it. But again, you need to ask you first, out of the things I really care, the contribution I can give, to my community, to people, to nature, to planet, to whatever you would choose. Because then life is very different. And that also means that if you decide to do something, it's a challenge, like in sports, because you want to do this. Life will be hard. Things will happen to you. But if the stress is a self-inflicted stress, it's healthy because your adrenaline goes up and your endorphin goes up, which is very different. If you are in a job and you say, why I'm here, you're stuck in there, and then you have a high likelihood of running into a burnout, which is, again, very often in the 40-ish or 50-ish. You've done something for 10, 15 years. You say, why I'm doing this? Just to make money. Yes, I make money, but again, it's not me. What is my life? What's the meaning? But also, a lot of young people, going back to your previous question, young people naturally want to contribute initially until they're told, no, you want to make money because money, fame and fortune and power is success. And then you're off to the wrong way.
It's funny how we do that. What you talk a lot about is vocate. How is that different than, say, a job or a career? What do you mean by that?
So my definition of vocating is if you dedicate yourself professionally to your vocation. It is not that you have a job and then you do a side gig just to cater to your inner child because you do something, you have a philanthropy, you do some good in the community. But your main job is primarily providing money and to be someone. And so this is a job. Vocating means that the reason, the why you do is actually your purpose. And that is very different because then a job is no longer a job. It's like my daughter saying, I cannot believe I'm paid to do this because she is in her zone. But again, very often people think, no, this doesn't, you don't go the vocation path or the purpose path because you need to make a living. It's a fundamental wrong thing. You need to first understand your vocation. And then, which is through the steps I guide people, the next step is, okay, what can you do with the vocation? What's the theory of change? Once you have figured that out, then, okay, which are the sectors and community could actually apply it? So then the fourth step, how can you create your vision board, your personal, professional business plan, in a sense? And then the other three steps are more the execution stamina, and also you measure your progress. Let me give you an example. I was at Oxford University doing a workshop with the MBA cohort. And one of the students says, Florian, I've studied so hard to learn financial modeling, and AI will make my job obsolete. I will be never as good as AI. And I said, okay, good point. Let's put this aside. Let's do something on your vocation. He said, what do you mean? Okay, we did an exercise. And after the exercises, he came back and says, what I really, really, really care about and where I would like to contribute to the world is the adaptation of humanity to climate change. Whether climate change is man-made or not, I don't care, but it's changing, and I'm worried about, with the hurricanes, the droughts, the fires, these things have an effect. So I would like to do something around the climate adaptation of humanity, of people. And that's beautiful. This is a vocation. Now, let's take your superpower, well-educated and smart in finance. Even your financial modeling skills you have is beautiful. And you combine both. And then look where you can apply this. And what was the result? He said, okay, but where do I go? You have huge amount of options. You can go to an insurance company. Insurance company have to deal with how to measure impact of climate change on their portfolio, even with reinsurance. So someone with your vocation on that and the skill set is very, very, it's an excellent candidate to work in there. You can go to the financial markets, whether you're investing or equity or these things. This is a big topic. You can go to big food corporations or agriculture, where this is all to be. You can use your financial skill set in the sector with your vocation on climate adaptation. You can go into smaller companies. You can go into companies dedicating on solutions. You can do your startup. You see that you have a vast possibility for you because you now know what is the thing you want to contribute and what is your superpower, your skill set to use it. And that is when this person gets the light, then digs down, doubles down, and gets into the field and is actually vocating.
I find a lot of people can't connect those dots and see how they could bring those two things together. They're just so stuck in their world. But I had a side question. What happened to the comedian?
It is a great question. And probably from a professional side, very little, except if I'm on stage and I do a presentation, I like to nudge in things just to make sometimes when things are too heavy to digest, you laugh a little, you smile. Yeah, because it helps actually people to not get overwhelmed emotionally. Because when you open Pandora's box emotionally inside of you, a lot of things can come out, which include anxiety, can be frustration and stuff, which is normally the adult just shutting down. No need, doesn't need that. Not good for me. We just bulldoze through. We keep running on the hamster wheel and doing the rat race. Yeah. And that's the part where light, some fun, some smiles, some jokes in a very sensitive way, And I like to do jokes about myself. Yeah. Because you might tap into others, somebody might feel judged, or ridiculed. But if it's about you and you make the jokes about yourself, and these things. So that's probably the only way I do, besides being a big fan and looking at other professional comedians. But even there, you have comedians which have then the temptation, they're very famous. They have worked hard to be famous and then slide into a depression because it's not necessarily the vocation. And this is, again, it goes back to the reason why did you start originally to do something? Is it induced by your father? Is it induced by somebody telling you you're really good at, you should do this? Or is it induced because you go back to saying, when I was a child, naturally, I wanted people to laugh. I wanted people to be entertained. It's very different.
That makes a lot of sense. I could see how somebody gets successful at something like that. And then in a sense, they get stuck because how do I stay on top? Right. And And that becomes an ego thing, or it may even just be a fear thing, or it could even be a performance thing. Like whatever it is, you get certain amount of success, and then you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because here I am now, and I have to keep it, so to speak. And I can't, like, too much performance anxiety almost at that point.
I love the angle you're taking here. If you are on your intuition and on your vocation, you don't have to justify anything to anyone because you're not doing it to perform, to nurture your ego, to be quote unquote successful. You just love what you do. So the likelihood for you to be caught, that horses might go off and you now feel famous and because you're seen over the world and these things. But again, this is a constant struggle, even with me, where I believe I'm pretty good at managing my ego, but sometimes I need to temper. I need to go humble again. Yeah, I need to go inside. I need to cut out the noise and work with myself because we are fragile. Because life throws sometimes, some curveballs, which get us by surprise. And that's a thing where it's between the inner child and the adult protecting the inner child.
So you mentioned earlier AI. Clearly, the world is changing. It's changing fast. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. At the end of the day, people are going to have to do something because if everyone loses a job, there's nobody to buy anything. And so the whole system breaks. So we're going to have to figure it out. It'll change. Somewhere we're going to land. I'm not worried about it. What are you kind of seeing? Like, how does AI play into this whole discussion?
A big topic. If we continue our education the archaic way from the past, only with external references, AI will only exacerbate that. Everybody will ask the machine, where do I go? What do I study? How can I earn more money? What are the opportunities? How can I protect it? It's all catered outside. And I'm concerned that it will suck the humanity in, where basically a little bit the matrix, you take the wrong pill. Yeah. And so the thing is just, because we're so used to run after the machine becomes more and more intelligent and more powerful, and the machine talks to the machine. So the likelihood for us to be actually subjugating ourselves to the machine is extremely high. And that eventually will, just by default, to lead to more mental disease and more burnouts, because at the end, you don't know how you ended up there, but you are there and you don't want to be there and you don't know how to get out because you would have to ask the machine again. So here is actually my topic, human agency. If you first figure out what you want to do vocationally, and then you demand the machine to help you to do, so then you're leveraging the machine. You're not subjugating yourself to the machine. So my hope is actually with younger generations, because look at that. In our times, we went to good education, good college. You go out there and you get an entry job, and off you go. Whether it's vocationally or not doesn't really matter, because you have a job. You're good, you can sustain life, and you get married and you have kids and you have a family and a house and everything fine. Okay, fine, until you are 50 and they say, what the heck is going on? I'm not doing what I do. My life is going on. But again, the risk was lower because you could sustain your life. Now you come out of college, your entry-level job is gone. Yeah, there is no McKinsey to start with first, or EY to go in the financial side, and. And it's now, first thing is wiping out over the next 3 years, 5 years, a huge amount of white-collar jobs. Yeah, and then you have the robots coming and it goes down to the blue-collar jobs. So yes, the beauty is, with every industrial revolution, efficiency of mankind has gone up. And so net, there was an increase in wealth. Now this goes exponential. And again, I don't know, Rocky, how it will look like in 10 years. But for me, is we have a unique chance if you gain human agency, if you figure out what you really want to do in life and you leverage AI, it has been never as easy, as fast, and as cheap to actually do something. But in the past, it was only privilege, took way too long. You need a lot of information, you need a lot of money to just create something. Now, no longer. But you have to understand that knowledge is no longer an asset because the machine will bring it to you.
Knowledge has no longer been pretty much since the internet went mainstream. We switched off a knowledge economy a long time ago. Schools never shifted. They're so far behind the curve that's a whole different story. You're right. And this is where I think the problem with schools are. They've spent their time teaching people what to think, not how to think. So they can't have a Socratic conversation with AI. When I talk with AI becomes a thought partner. So I've got a million gobbledygook messages that I drop into it and go, here is my brain vomit. Help me start to see things. What are the patterns? What's coming up a lot? Or I can take something and I can study it. I do this a lot on the spiritual side. I can study it 10 layers deeper than I ever could. But not only can I study it, I can say, how do I apply this? Because here's what I'm feeling or seeing. And here's what you're saying. I've got a gap here. How do I measure that gap or change that gap? And it might come back and say, do this, and I'm like, that's not going to work for me. And I'll come back and go, I was listening to Florian the other day. What would Florian tell me to do to fix this? And it'll come back and it'll give me that. And I'm like, all right, but I need a little bit of this in there too. So can we bring a little bit of that? And together, it helps me have a conversation. Now, more often than not, it's a little too nice to me. So sometimes I have to tell it it's full of it. Don't just stroke my ego. But I think that's the way it has to be used, as a thought partner, not as a question answerer. And you have to always challenge it and go, how did you come to that conclusion? Because I don't believe you. Going back to your other thought, though, because it is so easy to create content and so easy to create fake content, I think we're going to go back to, I want to see, touch, and feel the person next to me because I want to poke him and know he's real. And so I think we're going to go back to more of that as well. But I'd love to hear your comments on kind of both of those.
So first of all, it's very clear that you have human agency. And that is so beautiful. Me too, interactions, prompt back and forth, throwing something, not being sure, questioning it. And then you come, this is really, really amazing. It helps me on content creation, on things, on innovation in a big piece, because I know what I'm looking for. Yeah. Now I want to just make it as efficient as possible, question and challenge. So the same you're telling me is because you have human agency. I don't see this necessarily for my kids. They're all Gen Zers. I have 5 of them.
So my kids are Gen Z. They're older now. I see this with them. But they went to a school that taught them how to have a Socratic conversation, how to create an argument, how to polish your argument, how to use rhetoric and grammar, and learn how to learn a language so that you can think. And you have to practice and be able to do that. And so they were pushed both at home and at school to think, not to regurgitate. And so if you're going to wait for society to do it, forget about it. If you want to change, you got to do it yourself, I think.
That's why I'm just saying, this is why my focus is on human agency of people, to help them, and actually working now on digitalizing my teachings on that. I know it works personally very well because many, many people, accomplished people or younger people. I just had a call today, another one. But again, now we want to go that at scale. And I'm working to leverage AI for the human agency, which is actually the piece which I'm concerned about, is that, so my interest is to impact lives, as many lives as I can. And the best way, and the fastest way, and the cheapest way is to use it with technology, but you have to cater it accordingly. It's a little bit like we have in Geneva here the AI for Good Summit. It's a big UN-led think tank. You have a lot of corporates in there. You have investors in there. You have academia in there. You have startups in there. You have technology in there, just to see how to use AI to the best for humanity. And it's an interesting one. And it's one of the triggers for me also said, okay, probably if I do what I do is something people really, I'm serving people and the people get something out of it and then off they go. And life has changed because the awareness is there, and you're never the same person. And now you're asking and you're leveraging technology. Why wouldn't I do the same with the methodology just to go and scale it beyond the book?
As I'm thinking through this, imagine you asked a question to AI, and instead of AI answering, it said, why do you want to know? What are you looking for as an outcome? And you'd have to start, it would force you to think before it would give you an answer. And maybe even giving you choices to think about. I'm reminded of a Monty Python skit where he asked something about the flying swallow, and it's like this or that, and it was a hilarious thing. But imagine if AI did that to people and said, what's the context? Why do you want to know that in that way? What are you hoping to accomplish? By the way, I noticed you asked this, and this 3 weeks ago. Is this related or unrelated? Because I'm starting to see a pattern. And I have run prompts like this inside of AI. I asked it to tell me what my keystone problem is, so to speak. And it was freaking brutal. It was right. It was brutal. And now I go, I can fix that. I can go back to my childhood and I can fix these things. But that would be, I think, a very interesting AI.
Which is what we're working on in that direction. And also, I've used AI to confirm whether it is my inner child, my adult, or my parent talking. And it was damn precise. So if I want to manage my ego, if I want to make sure that the decision I'm making is a decision truly on my intuition, because intuition seldomly, mistakes. Very different when you are attached and, when it's ego driven, you might quicker do certain mistakes, or at least for you, it might be less useful or helpful for you. But you can see there is a way in a notion, when a pathway going right now, where we can actually fine tune things. So the efficiency, as you say it helps you more, because now you get actually, when the prompt is done in the right way, you can get this. But our intention is to design the architecture in a way that really helps people step by step by step. And also when you are then executing and when you measure that and when you course correct, you basically want to see on the ikigai where you are. Yeah, those are the things we're working on right now.
Interesting times we live in. Is there anything else we should have touched on that you wanted to bring about today from our conversation and I didn't ask about?
No, not really, because actually you had some so first of all, your background is amazing, because I see you so much in tune, with where I'm coming from and the things you have done. Yeah, which makes it very natural having a conversation. Yeah. And I also see that you don't take anything for granted. And therefore, this is a great conversation, because it is really exploring things and peeling the onion from different directions, which is really, really, truly my pleasure to be here and talking to you.
I get mad because I keep peeling the onion and I keep thinking I get to the center. And I'm like, oh, damn, there's another onion in there. It's rather annoying. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
Success is the way you live and love in life, not your image, your money, or the power you have.
And I agree with you. You know, the more I think about it, and again, this isn't from a religious standpoint, but if you go back to the Bible and Jesus said, you know, what's the one thing I have to do? Love your neighbor as yourself. And I think a lot of these things come back to the concept of love. And when there's a lot more of that, life in general becomes a lot nicer. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
To understand that there is an inner child and it's very powerful. And I should have listened to it, learned about it much earlier, not at the age of 33, you know, with all the responsibilities around it at its time.
Don't feel bad. You beat me by at least a decade. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Don't ask for advice. Listen to what you really want to do.
And at that age, I think it's difficult and there's a lot of noise. And if you haven't looked at your own programming, you might think you want to do something that you really don't want to do. And so you just have to be careful. That's all. And AI, I think, can become a great thought partner to say, hey, help me find my inner child. Ask me one question at a time until we get to the core. If people would like to learn more about you and connect, where do they find you?
Yes, you just go to on-vocation.com. You can contact me. You can look at my teachings, the things we do. You can sign up for the Vocating app. Yeah, we're working on the MVP right now, and then we'll fine-tune that to make sure the signal is coming across. Yeah, so this is all very exciting. But absolutely, it's on-vocation.com.
And we will put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Rocky. This was a truly wonderful conversation, also for me, honestly, because always I learned something new, and I had several nudges here, which helped me.
I'm glad I could do that. So, quick recap. Success isn't about the money or the title. It's about the alignment between who you are and what you do. Second, most of us are taught to ignore our inner child to suppress it. And that's exactly where burnout comes from. Let's face it, it's fun being a kid. And third, AI and technology aren't going to save you. Human agency will. And that's the key. You have to know what you want before you ask the machine for help. I hope you found it helpful today. And if you know someone else who would find this helpful, would you do me a favor and share it with them? Help them to find the life that we're all working towards. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.